debt collectors are going state to state, lobbying legislators to change the laws and really flip the scales back in their favor to allow them to do all types of stuff that they used to do in the past. I need you to like this video. I need you to like this video. That's the only way that people can become aware. Is the algorithm says if people don't like it, people don't care about it. So if you care about my channel, and if you care about being able to help other people, because what I'm about to talk about is going to help you if you have issues with debt collectors, and it's going to help other people. So like this video right now. So let's start here, because some of the times you need to go to the past to let people know what was going on so they can understand. We're all this way, so we can understand that hard work was done and put into place so we don't have to go through certain things right now at this time period. But I'm here to tell you that debt collectors are going state by state to these legislators, and they are pushing them to change the rules. Now, I'm going to talk about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and you need to hear what I'm going to say, but I'm going to tell you one thing that has happened that I've become aware of, and I'm troubled by it. I'm very troubled by it, because I believe that I have to make a decision about my channel. And it's not a decision that people are not watching and people are not, paying attention and people are not getting good information and able to help themselves or come to us to help them. Here's the deal, is I don't want to give debt collectors ideas about what we are doing to fight them. And one of the things that, and I spoke about it in my video that I posted before this one, so you can go there. It's about reviving judgments. And just in case you don't know, reviving a judgment is where you have a judgment and you probably just like, hey, they done left me alone. I got the judgment. I know it's there. They haven't tried to garnish me. They haven't tried to do nothing. And then all of a sudden you get a letter in the mail saying that you're summoned to court because the debt collector has purchased your debt, that judgment, and that they want to revive it and be able to come after you. In previous videos, I've showed people how debt collectors have to, there's laws on reviving a judgment. Some states were 7 years, some states were 10 years. So what that meant was, regardless of that a judgment can last for 20 years, the states as relief to consumers, because no one should be trapped for 20 years unless someone is actively going after them for that debt. Because you can't move forward having that judgment unresolved. So there has to be some type of out. I mean, just think about it, 20 years. So what the state legislators did back then is they made these rules. And they said that if a original creditor or debt collector who gets a judgment, if they don't renew it within 7 years, before the 7th year in some states, and it could be different for your state, but the longest was 10 years. So, and in some states, they had to do it 90 days before that date, that deadline date. And if they didn't do it, the judgment would be gone, because they couldn't come after you. Now, the judgment could still be there on the record, but they had no legal recourse to come after you for that judgment because they went past the period of time, the statute, the legal statute. Well, this is what has happened in the state of Illinois, and we've researched it thoroughly today. In the state of Illinois, they had an amendment to their revival of judgments. And what they've done is not only did they say that they can revive it, but they can revive it at any time. So let's just say that they go 19 years without going after you. And then on the 19th year, they sell it to a debt collector, and or even the original creditor. And that debt would be past the statute of limitations legally for them to collect according to the laws in your state. But because they got that judgment, they're going to be able to come after you, revive that judgment, regardless of how long they waited. So it would have to be after 20 years for you to be up from under that debt. And having that judgment affects your life in many ways that stops you from being able to get a house because you got to have that resolved. It can stop you from being able to get a job. As a matter of fact, one of my clients today got her license for insurance agent, and it specifically says on the application that you cannot have any judgments. As a matter of fact, in my state of Wisconsin, plumbers, anyone who has a license to do something cannot have judgments on their record at all, or you don't qualify. So this stops an individual from even being able to move forward with gainful employment. So let's go back to why all of this stuff happened with the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, all of the stuff about debt, so people can know where we were at, and then I'm going to tell you what you need to do, because we need to pay attention to this. We need to pay attention to, because what these debt collectors are doing, and I see on the summons, I see on the responses from these debt collectors, because we've had dealings with all of them, and they are making adjustments. They are not in the business of losing money, even though 75%, 80% of their cases now, it used to be 95% until a company like the Credit Repair Shop came around and gave some people who came in contact with us some solutions to actually win these court cases against debt collectors. They're not going to stand by and go from 95% to 80% to 75%, even though they're making a killing. They're making millions, if not billions of dollars, even at 75%. They're not in the business of losing any money. So what they'll do is they'll go behind all of our back and they'll go to the legislators and say, hey, what if we pay you some money to listen to us? And what they want to have them listen to is changing things like the revival of a judgment. Listen to stuff about debt validation. Now, we don't need to get political on my channel, but we want to be factual. If you look at Justice Gorsuch, look at the decision that came down from the Supreme Court, and then he put his stamp on it, where he said these debt collectors become the original creditor when they buy the debt, as long as they don't buy debt and collect for others at the same time. So if a debt collector is only buying debt and going after debt that they have, they get all the rights as an original creditor. That's the top of the pyramid right there. And now that's federal. So now let's go state to state. Let's go state to state and hit these legislators and get them to change this. See, nobody's calling them up and saying, hey, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. But see, when people don't find themselves in those situations, like me, I'm wide open about what I went through in the 90s. $300,000 in debt, fighting with my wife. I'm just telling you, this stuff wrecks families. And then when you say, instead of, even if it's a 7 or 10 year, to put it to 20 years, and if the family can't get out of that debt, they're in trouble. Now, in 1833, debtors' prisons were made illegal by our U.S. Congress. So if we want to look back, some of this stuff it's a long time ago, but it was here. See, people, when we think of stuff, when it hasn't happened with us, and then we find out this stuff did happen before, it's a totally different thing. Because all they have to do is turn the law over. That easy. And how do they do it? They go to the legislators. And they say, well, people aren't paying up, and maybe we need to change that rule. And then nobody's on the other side countering it. And that's mainly because people don't know. So, in 1833, debtors' prisons were stopped. I made a video a week ago where I showed, even though debtors' prisons have stopped, they are still utilizing a tool that every court will allow them to do, to utilize to be able to put people in jail over a debt that they owe. When they call people in for a debtor's examination, and if they don't show up, that person will be arrested and taken to jail. And if they can't get in front of a judge to answer on that debt say it happens on Friday, and they can't see a judge until Monday, guess what? And the way that people are able to get out is if they just pay the whole debt. So that's the answer that they give to people. Well, if you want to get out right now, you just pay the whole debt plus the fees. Like this video right now. And I have a little bit of a cold, so excuse me on this. So now let's talk about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. It wasn't something that they just put in place just because they wanted to say, hey, let's do something to put a law in place to manage debt collectors. This is what was happening. They were harassing people. They were calling people's house. They were calling people's jobs. They were calling their family, friends, neighbors, whoever that they could call. They were knocking on people's doors. They were harassing. I remember when I was a kid, and the debt collector came to our house, and I remember one of my parents, I don't remember which one it was, they said, don't answer the door.
Returning
and
visitor.
And I'm like wondering why, and don't answer the door. Some of you that might be my age experienced that. That's the way it used to be. These people used to come knocking on your door. These people used to go to your job. These people used to call your friends, your neighbors. They tell everybody your business. They didn't just call and say, we're looking for Steve. No, they said, he owes this debt. He hasn't paid us. We're looking for him. And as a matter of fact, if you don't let him know to call us, that we're going to have him arrested. That's right there in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Threats of being arrested. Threats of being arrested. Going to jail. They didn't put that terminology in there for no reason. So you imagine you and your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, and somebody comes knocking on your door and they say, we're going to put you in jail because you didn't pay this debt. What are you going to think? Calling you. Right now there's something called 7 in 7 days. That means that they can call you one time a day for 7 days. If they talk to you on the phone, that's an engagement, and they can't call you for another 7 days. They used to call people over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. They would call you in the morning and you say, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. They'd call you in the afternoon and you would say, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. And they call you at night and you would still tell them, I don't know what you're going to do about it. But that wasn't the point of it. The point of it is they wanted to be in your face. That's what the point of it was. In the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it says that. That was not put there just because somebody came up with it and said, oh, let's just let them call one time per day. The next thing is making false statements, saying that they are an attorney when they're not an attorney. This is something that they were doing with the reps. And as a matter of fact, when I was going through my debt problems in the 1990s, the debt collectors who called would say that they're attorneys. And then it turned out that they wasn't, but I didn't know my rights that time. And that's another thing, is that when you are under extreme pressure, emotional pressure, you know, my grandkids, they say emotional damage, and I don't even like them repeating that. That's on one of those YouTube videos. Emotional damage, emotional damage. Well, they was causing a hell of a lot of emotional damage. Even with the way that it is right now, they cause damage. Can't sleep. Fighting with your spouse. Afraid of getting garnished at your job. Barely able to pay your bills. And then they're threatening to sue you in court. This was the way it was, and that scares people now. But what if they could just do and say anything to you? And you don't know what is true and what's not true. And the thing about it, there was no laws to even back you up. Any of us up. What about saying the amount that you owe? One of the tactics that was utilized on me with a credit card that they claimed I owed $4,500 for when I was 18 years old in the U.S. Army. And yes, I didn't pay the card, but I knew at that time the most that card was, I was only making $600 a month in the U.S. Army. I'm 18 years old. It was a Citibank card. They didn't give me $4,500. The debt collector said I owed $4,500. Thankfully, I was like, I don't owe $4,500 and I'm not paying you $4,500. And I just went back and forth with the judge, went back and forth with them. And that was a teachable moment, because a lot of what I learned in that court session is how I help you today. From what I learned there. And it was against Roush, Stern, and Hornick. And they sent a young attorney the first time, and I pushed back without even a response document. I just pushed back with my words. And then they sent him in, Attorney Roush. So I'm against him in court. And I ended up doing a settlement for $500, but I didn't even have to pay anything. If I would have knew my rights, I wouldn't have to pay anything. But they don't have to tell you nothing. But I've saved a whole bunch of people from paying anything. So I paid $500 to be able to help people. Probably the numbers right now is probably about $5+ million of debt that people have not had to pay because of statute of limitations. But they used to throw out their numbers that they claimed people owed, and they were able to do it. It didn't matter. There was nobody to go to. They didn't even have to give you documents. They could just come right up to you and say, you owe us $5,000. As a matter of fact, when I asked for the documents from Roush, because this is before they made upgrades to the FDCPA, we're talking about 1990s. Everything they gave me was redacted. I was like, what the hell is this? They gave me a stack of stuff, and 100% of it was redacted, except for one little line with my name on it. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Another thing that they used to get away with was collecting extra fees. Like, they could just throw any amount on that. Hey, you owed $1,500 on that old debt, and we're going to throw another $1,500 for the fees. That was not there. They didn't just throw that on. Debt collectors were abusing that. It was like, hey, our fee is what we charge. To validate what I'm saying, look at it. If you got a court summons, and it might even be stating on some of the debt collection letters that they will actually state that they did not add anything to it because they want to remain compliant with the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. Because they know that they could get questioned on any abnormal amount of fees that they're trying to charge on a debt collection or even on a lawsuit. So what I need people to do, and I'm going to be seriously thinking about utilizing a different platform to actually share the stuff that is working. Other than the stuff that I've already done, I'm going to keep that on YouTube. But there's going to have to be another platform where I give you stuff so we don't sit there and just be telling them, hey, he's telling them on how to work with this, telling them on what they could do with that. So let's go to the legislators and make these changes. Let's go and, be prepared when people are trying to come after, when we're trying to go after people. Let's just be proactive and try to throw a wrench into the game. Because I think that I have a duty to, and I love YouTube. As a matter of fact, I practiced for YouTube in my car in the 1990s, in the 2000s, before YouTube existed. I used to sit there on the way to work. My drive to my office was over an hour long and an hour back. And I would sit there and be talking as if I'm talking to y'all right now. So it's been like a playground for me. But like all things, I have to be very careful, because this playground that we're talking about, we're not sitting here doing flips and showing people's rear ends and talking about gossip and all of that stuff that they do on the other channels. We're talking about stuff that saves families. We're talking about stuff that keeps people from having an emotional breakdown. Read the comments on what people say when they utilize what the information that I give them, and see what they say. And then I think you'll get a better understanding. And then for you that think that I'm some type of plant, I'm not a plant. What I'm trying to do is to make sure that people can live their lives without a surprise. People can improve their lifestyle. People can wake up without surprises, nothing taking your money, none of that stuff. But I also want you to focus on taking care of what needs to be taken care of, because you can't move forward if you got bad credit. You can't move forward with unresolved judgments, or you're going to be limited. And then stuff could come back to haunt you. And that's what I try to do, is avoid it. Like, I try to get people to understand where they're at so they can avoid making some of the mistakes that I made, and then just avoid even making stuff worse. I'm always positive minded, and I think that everybody is going to make it through whatever you're going through, regardless if you watch my videos, regardless if you are a customer of ours. I think that you have the power inside of you to be able to do what you want to do with your life and get over any hurdle that's right there in front of you. My part is just to encourage you. So if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes Us Different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website your3scores.com. Grab your TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian credit reports. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters. Statute of limitations letter, debt validation letter, and cease and desist collection activities letter. Thank you for your time. Please like this video. Post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.